Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Life Together video podcast, a podcast where we'll be talking about topics as varied as life itself. Life is messy, life is beautiful, so let's talk about it. I'm your host, Eric Henninger. I'm sitting here with my friend Greg Williams. Greg is the director for the marriage movement through the Family Foundation.
Got it.
Did I get
a
it?
Mouthful, isn't it?
It's a lot of words.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today, man.
Man, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity.
You hear that? It's always a pleasure, everybody.
Chick-fil-A,
yes.
Cookout.
Yeah,
those are good places.
It's been a few weeks. I think we're due.
We're due. Yeah, yeah.
We're due.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, and now that we have Chick-fil-A and Cookout, we get to rotate, or flip-flop back and forth anyway. Well, listen, I want to talk to you a little bit about your work with the Family Foundation and the marriage movement and stuff. So talk to me about that.
Okay, you want me to talk with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you do? What do you do with them, and for what purpose?
Well, let me give you a little background. The Family Foundation has been around for 25 years. And it was started as part of Focus on the Family when they were trying to reach out into the states and go, we need state policy councils and those kind of things. And that's exactly what they did. They did policy and legislation for the first 20 years. And interestingly enough, Dr. Dobson had been saying for a long time, our culture's not only in trouble, but even our churches are in trouble because we're not taking care of marriage and family the way we ought to. So he started the policy councils. Kentucky was one of the first ones in 1990. And for 20 years, they did a lot of good things. There's a lot of good policies that are there because of their involvement in people around Kentucky. And there are a few not so good ones that aren't there. Now, it's not 100%. We're not batting 1,000.
Who is?
Yeah.
Who is, right?
Who is? That's just my next question. You stole the words right out of my mouth. But here's the other thing. About 5 years ago, in 2010, Kent came to me as I was wrapping up something else and said, we can continue to make good policy or defeat bad policy when we can, but we're still not making a change in our culture, really. It's still sliding downhill. And so he said, would you come and help kind of direct a marriage outreach? And we ended up calling it the Kentucky Marriage Movement. And so for the last 5 years, that's what I've been doing, kind of focusing, instead of on the policy and legislation, focusing on marriages and couples and families and churches and communities.
Nice. Okay. I was thinking of my next question, but then you said something, and we've talked a little bit about it before as it relates to some other things, but like the policies and stuff are less the problem, more a symptom of the problem. And so it sounds like what you're doing is treating the actual issue, not the symptoms.
Yeah. Chuck Colson, of infamy, a Watergate scandal, but also Breakpoint and
right.
Colson Center for Christian Worldview. And I'm not sure I got that title exactly right, but the late Chuck Colson, I should say, used to say politics is upstream from culture. So you're right.
Yeah.
Culture is really about who we are in our relationships,
right, in
our homes, our families, our churches, our communities. And so, that's what we're hoping to do. And we've had a lot of open doors.
So what's the big deal with marriage? Why is marriage such an important thing that you feel for you to focus on with this?
Yeah. Well, most anyone giving an objective view of this would say that marriage and family are the bedrock or the foundation of any good society. Now, history's proven that out. Our social science research proves that out today, over and over again. Sadly enough, we've moved away from that and we try and find a science, or at least tweak or manipulate a science to say what we want it to say.
Right.
And it's more about ideology than even science, and certainly more about that than a worldview. Well, it is a worldview. But marriage and family have, from the beginning of time, been the foundation and bedrock, as I said earlier, of good societies, good communities, good cultures. And every time that a culture has fallen, as we learned from the history of Roman civilization and many others, it's fallen from within. There's been attacks from without, there's been wars and all those kind of things that are sad, but it's fallen from within because they have allowed relationships, sexuality, marriage, and family to kind of be whatever people wanted it to be. And so you take the boundaries off of that and you go, well, we're just, it just affects a few people, but really affects all of us. So it's extremely important. It is a big deal.
Right. It does. I think that I find it interesting when you start putting rules on things. Yeah. Right. People are like, whoa, maybe you can tell me what to do.
I'm my own person.
Yeah. And there's a certain case for individuality.
Yes.
But I think sometimes we feel like some of the guidelines are there to kind of suck our fun away from us, and they're actually really there for our protection.
Yeah. Well, individuality can become an idol in and of itself.
Sure.
Look at American Idol. I mean, what did we call that? American Idol. You know, if you can do this, then we're going to worship you. Basically, we're going to follow you
Right.
because we picked you. And of course, all the other stuff that comes with that. But in
Yeah.
reality, individuality is certainly something that our founding fathers saw a need to protect. But at the same time, they did it with the understanding of human nature that we've got to keep certain things in place.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
guidelines
absolutely.
and boundaries and foundations.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot to be said about family and not relationships, marriage and family, and obviously those tie together.
They are a relationship, by the way, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I had it in my notes,
I
but
knew
I was
you
like,
knew that. I knew you knew
I
that.
better
I'm
do
just
some fact checking.
making
on
sure
that
that
one.
our audience should know that, right?
Marriage is a relationship.
Yeah.
No. See, now you derailed me with that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah,
I'm just joking. Okay, so you touched on it a little bit. Maybe we can dive into a little bit more depth as far as how does that nucleus of a community, a small community of a family, affect our community at large.
Yeah, I'll share a couple things with that. Family life, Dennis and Barbara Rainey, who do a lot of marriage and family things, some really good things. But they say it this way: every marriage and family is a little church. That's true. I would also say this: every marriage and family is a little community. And if you don't get the little ones right, you're not going to get the bigger ones right. And then the farther we go without those guidelines and those boundaries and the things that help us govern personally, us, self-control, self-governance, and guide our relationships, then we're going to have larger and larger communities and governments that are trying to take care of the problems that arise from that. And I alluded to it earlier. Social science shows us that everywhere that marriage and family breaks down, all the negative outcomes rise. Crime, poverty, prostitution, gambling, addictions, they rise. Whenever marriage and family is strong, it doesn't mean everything's perfect, but when they are strong, all of these things go down, and good education, lower poverty levels, everything goes in that direction. It's the only single social factor that covers all of them when they control for all of them, scientifically, research speaking, data speaking. So if we're going to pay attention to that, and we should, let's drop our ideologies and go, wow, they've controlled for that. We can try and make it what we want. But those relationships and those little communities, those little churches, those little societies affect the bigger society.
Sure, right. Because as parents, our kids are going out into, and they're
Exactly.
bringing those things they're learning about relationships.
Or not learning.
Right.
Right.
Well, and whether they're
They learn
learning
it
or
one
not
way or the
learning,
other,
it's still a learn
Positive or negative.
thing. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. That's good stuff. Why do you think that there's such a devaluing of the family and even the kind of the sanctity of marriage, not in the Supreme Court sense of it, but
Even deeper than
that's
that.
a totally different podcast.
Yeah. It's a whole nother message, right?
But because one of the things I've been thinking about in relationship to that is before gay marriage was a thing, we weren't treating marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like heterosexuals weren't even treating marriage with the sanctity that Scripture tells us it was created with. So why do you think? And even in the life of David, King David, way back in the Old Testament,
a couple sexual relational problems.
he had a couple issues, and I thank God for His grace and forgiveness and stuff.
Yes.
But even back then, so it's not a new thing. So why do you think it is that there is and has been and continues to be like a devaluing of or a lack of importance placed on that relationship?
Well, and you mentioned David and Bathsheba, and a lot of people that don't even go to churches a lot might know a little bit about that because they know that's sin, and we can go, I can relate to that. I mess things up, whether it's on that level or another level. But you can go all the way back to Adam and Eve and their struggles, and Cain and Abel, their a brother relationship that was torn apart, and Abraham and Sarah, they messed things up, and it was messed up at the relational level. And we get in this conversation fairly regularly with the Family Foundation because we get seen as a group that's a hate group, that's that kind of thing, and that's not it at all. We often field calls, and people will go, when are you guys going to get the love of God? Well, I can't stand you. You upset my stomach and everything. And they'll say, I go, listen, we'll be glad to talk with you. Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? I said, as a matter of fact, in the culture, Supreme Court, you're winning right now. We're more than happy to talk to you, but we're going to still stand for what we believe in. And then oftentimes they'll say something like this. okay, you're telling us that you have the market cornered on marriage. You want us to do marriage your way? And we go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we do, but not necessarily the way we've always modeled it. And so we've kind of fallen on issues like divorce
Sure,
and,
yeah.
lust and adultery and pornography. All of those things affect the most intimate of relationships, and that is marriage. And if we're not going to do them, teach them, model them with some kind of integrity, we're going to have a tough time speaking against any kind of relationship.
Yeah, and I think that is where we do run into problems.
Yeah, sure we do.
Is it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, your marriage, not you,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
your marriages, or even in the church, there's so many, divorces and,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I found
And there's grace. You've said that before. There's
Right.
grace. It's
And
not the
thank goodness for
unpardonable
that.
sin, but we ought
Right.
to teach divorce for what God said it was. He hates it.
right,
He
yeah,
didn't,
exactly.
He didn't give it to us because it works. He gave it to us because we have hard hearts.
Yeah,
We struggle in relationships. And God said, I know, and some of these things you're going to have difficulty to overcome. So I'm going to allow this, but it's not my plan.
right.
So when you do it, you get outside of his plan. You remarry, I believe you're outside of his plan, but he forgives that.
Yeah,
That's truth and grace, not just going, oh, well, you're okay. You got your papers and all that, so it's all good. It's more than, and I know that you understand that.
Yeah,
You know,
totally, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got to have more integrity with it and teach. But what we do is in the
Yeah.
churches, I think we compromise so much on the truth teaching and go, well, it's okay. Let's just drop it there. You got divorce. Let's teach it for what God's design was. Because
right,
he is the designer.
right.
He was the author, so he has the authority. If we want to believe that, we're going to say we believe that. Then we can come back and go, yeah, that is what he said. But there is grace. There is forgiveness.
Absolutely.
It's not the unpardonable sin.
Right. Well, thank goodness we were talking about grace, like even going back to David, and
Yes.
like, thank goodness for that. You said something, and I just wanted to comment on it, kind of in general to our audience, and in here, having believing something doesn't, or that believing something that contradicts what somebody else believes doesn't equal hate.
Exactly right.
And
Yeah,
and there's such a
exactly.
push towards me, like, oh, well, you don't agree with whatever it is. Pick a topic. Well, you're intolerant. You're hateful. No, not necessarily.
It's not even tolerance.
And
actually, yeah.
And we see it, and it's so funny because as I watch things in the media and on the social networks, you see the hate from both sides of any
it's
heated
yeah,
debate.
yes.
So I just wanted, I don't know, it's not in the notes or anything.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to comment on that like having an opinion or, believing something, that's where, as we have our ability as individuals and to express ourselves and to say, I don't agree with you, but it never gives us a place to be hateful. And I think just to take a stand for anything and then to have people label it, that person or that organization as hateful, I think is a step in the, is way over the line. Now there are
groups unfortunately, that
are
fit that
hateful,
stereotype. Yes.
And
yes.
we could we could name names. No, I'm kidding, not
yes,
names.
yeah.
But we see it them all over the media. And unfortunately, the people that are making similar claims and that are acting negatively and outside of what I feel is like the realm of love and how Jesus wants Christians to behave towards other people, they get all the press. Because it's
That's
so
what
sensational.
they wanted people to hear about it.
Right.
Don't listen to the other side that says, on either side, that says, no, we do care. We want to listen. We want to hear. Doesn't mean we have to agree. As a matter of fact, tolerance itself is not what we've made, and words mean something.
Yeah.
If words mean something, then truth means something. There has to be a foundation for those words, because if they're not, it just depends on who has the most power.
Right.
And then you can't live that way. We're seeing that in a lot of things today. Tolerance is one of those words, along with love, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, I think. But tolerance is one of those words. If tolerance means what it's always meant, truth, it means that we can respectfully disagree. We might have to part ways a little bit, but I can still care about you, and I can still do what's best for you. But I don't have to agree with you. We have to agree on everything. There is no tolerance.
That's not tolerance.
There's no need for tolerance. There's no need for it if we have to agree. And so love says that tolerance is part of that, says, I can still care about you and be committed to what's best for you, which means I'm going to share with you what I believe the truth is. And you can do the same to me.
Yeah. And then I think, and then everybody has the responsibility to sincerely listen
Yes.
and be a student
Yes.
of other people's stories and be empathetic to their journey. I think that's how Jesus did it. I think that's how we need to do it too.
But he also, we have to be very sincere and even more integral. We have to have integrity in living out what we believe that truth to be.
Right. Absolutely.
And if we think that truth means shutting everybody else up, then where's the love in that?
Right.
So
exactly.
we don't have that. So we've got to be able to listen and hear. You're right. You're right.
And it flows both ways.
Yes, it does.
For sure. Now, that was totally not in here. Where were we at?
That was all free.
So I think we kind of talked about how we counter the devaluing of it, and it's just working it with, treating the source of the problem, the family itself. What can I do as a father to teach my kids about healthy relationships and how to treat other people? I'm a single dad, so I'm not currently in a marriage where I am able to model that relationship for them. But even with their mother, I'm able to model. Now, I wish I could say I was perfect at it, but still model how to treat other people, even when you don't see eye to eye with them on something. And I think that the way that marriages line up, if we apply some of those to our relationships, and in fact, it's not even just a marriage thing. Putting people in front of ourselves, their needs in front of our own. It's amazing what starts to happen. When what do you speak to that?
Well, that's a great question. You're throwing me these little lobs, these little softballs, but this is a good one. One of the things that we teach in our program, I do a marriage seminar retreat, but I also say singles are more than welcome. Come on, for whatever reason. Come on, because we're going to learn so much more than just how to get along in marriage. As a matter of fact, as a Christian, I have to learn what that is before I ever enter into other relationships. Now, it has to be lived out in those, but I think one of the great struggles in our culture today, including many of our churches, is because we talk about salvation and people being saved, and knowing Christ. Right. That's absolutely important because you can't get anywhere beyond that. That's a free gift that you can't get any other way. He gives it to you. But we tend to go, oh, great, now you know Jesus, you're saved, go serve others. And Jesus himself said the first and greatest command is to love God. And just because I've saved you to put you in that relationship, you're not in a fully mature, loving relationship with him. You got to work on it.
Right.
I'm going to give you the tools, my word, the Spirit, and I'm speaking Bible language here. But the issue is true everywhere. I'm not in a fully mature, loving relationship with my Creator and my God the day I realize I needed a Savior. Neither are two people in a marriage. They're not in a fully mature, loving relationship the day they say I do. So what that means is, it's true of any relationship, if we're going to make it work, we have to work on it. Right. And it was the first and greatest command. Love me with all you are. And then, you alluded to this, Eric, love who you are. And I would say this, it's not pop psychology or anything. It's, as a Christian, I would say, I really can only love who I am when I know who I was created to be. So I got to know my Creator, and that's the first command. Love him. Love who I am in him. And then I can take myself off that second rung, if I'm doing it, put myself on the bottom rung, and I can love all others. Because that's what my Savior did for me. That's what Jesus did. He said, I'm going to love you to the point of dying and giving myself for you. That's what sacrificial, selfless love really means. Anything apart from that, you're starting to move toward lust. What is it in for me? That can be applied to any relationship. And if I know who I am, then I can go, okay, because he says the second one, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Any part of me that's left is going to be selfish in that. So I have to grow in that.
Yeah, they're kind of like those little, it's kind of like the little babushka dolls. Is that what they're called? The little, there's another one inside.
Yep.
It's like, in order to get to
is
this one.
that what they're called?
I don't know.
Babushka.
Little
babushka.
It sounds good.
That sounds good, yeah. I like that.
But yeah, these these different relationships are like build on one another.
Yes.
And I think that I've tried to put it into words so many times. I think one of the problems that you see in friendships all the way up to marriages is the what about me attitude. And I'm not talking about staying in an abusive, situation. That's obviously not a positive thing either. No. But
you got to take steps there to protect yourself, but you can still work on it even if you're doing that. Right. You can work on a committed relationship, with a friend or in a marriage to do that.
Yeah. But when we get to the point where and I have been guilty of this in the past, and this is one of the things that I've been learning over the last couple of years, is that loving somebody else, whether it's a spouse or even a child.
children,
And for some reason, it seems to come easier with your children on a lot of levels.
Because early on, they kind of give you back that unconditional love.
Yeah.
And you don't really think of it, but it's
true.
so easy to love them because they're going, oh, daddy, daddy, mommy, mommy, I love you. You're great.
You're like, this is awesome.
My life revolves around you. And that's the selfish part of what we're looking for. And I can tell you, in many marriages, a mistake that's made is when there's struggle in the marriage relationship, then one of the first things they turn to, and it's very noble, but it's still out of line, is they begin to center everything on the kids.
Yeah, right.
Because the kids will listen and obey. And by the way, Jesus said, if you love me, you keep my commands. Well, what do kids tend to do when they're young? They obey you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because and I think this is interesting too, that a lot of the things that we're talking about are scriptural principles.
Yeah.
And what's funny is and like you said something about to really love yourself and understand that you have to understand who your creator is and how he loves you. Yeah. And so I think that's a very integral part to the whole process.
You can't let go of yourself if you're trying to prove something. Or if you got to get something back out of it.
Yeah. Right? But the whole biblical principle of loving people and giving to people and not making it about yourself transcends everything, I think, on so many levels.
And we can't do that on our own.
Right.
We really can't.
We can try. And we even have some success to a certain degree.
Yeah. And then I begin to feel good about myself because I did something good for somebody else. And we need to keep trying.
And it's like, hey, what is somebody going to do? Something good for me. Oh, yeah, there it is. There's the pride. But if you're in, whether it's a friendship or a marriage, two people that are going, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
What can I? And when that's
I'm committed to you.
Right.
That's the real definition of love, not feelings. And that's one of the main problems that we carry over, not just from marriage and general idea of love, but the foundation of it, even in friendships, we get off of this. Love is a commitment. And again, I'm talking biblical, but if you want to find the greatest example, look at the cross. There was nothing that felt good about it. I don't care if you believe in it or not. He says that he did it for us, and he says that he could have been removed from it. But he chose to stay, even though everything about it hurt.
Yeah, the feelings weren't there.
Nowhere. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, social. Everything had rejected him. Even my God, why have you forsaken me? My God, so there was nothing that felt good, but he stayed committed to it. Yeah. And that's the thing that we don't do. So we base love on a feeling, and then I do this thing in my conferences or seminars called the cookie jar, and I won't go into all of it, but we end up walking down the aisle or walking as friends, and we have our cookie jar in the opposite hand going, I really did like your cookies. You shared some with me. Well, I'll share some only if you'll give a little bit. And what we really need to learn about love is it's going, you know what, I really care for you. I really think a lot about you. And in marriage especially, because it's the highest of human relationships, so there's a priority to it. Yeah. And we need to go, here, you can have my cookie jar, whether you give me yours or not. Now, you got to be careful in marriage because you're going to spend your life together. So you got to make sure you got a person that's learning that as well. Right.
Well, that's why we get to know people, I think, right?
Yes.
And before we enter into a long-term relationship.
And it's not just attraction, although that's a fault today. If you're attracted and turned on, you must be good.
Right.
That's really feelings and hormones.
Yeah. And exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's so much more to it. And when the feelings go away, when somebody gets a black eye or puts on some weight or gets in an accident, where's the physical attraction there? Yeah. And not discounting being attracted. Like you find your wife attractive and she finds you attractive.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Nice. But she finds me nice.
But you definitely find her attractive. Right?
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that, but you can't build, like what you're saying is you can't build a relationship on that stuff because there's so much more.
And it can be anybody's definition. If I'm doing a conference and I've got 100 people in the conference, we've got 100 different definitions of love. What are we going to do when they bump up against each other?
Right.
Who wins? But if you go to the foundation, because scripturally speaking, even the Greeks, the truth was not a virtue. Truth was the foundation. Love was the principal virtue, and all other virtues flowed from that. So if I wanted to be tolerant, I had to learn that that's part of love. It's not about me getting my way or you agreeing with me. It was me recognizing who you were, knowing who I was, and if we disagreed, that's okay.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so
that's good.
We need to learn that, and we get away from it. Even our churches, when we go, okay, you're saved, go serve somebody, and we got people going, okay, where do I sign up? And they don't know how to love the Lord. because it's a
Right.
command. We don't do it naturally, and they don't know how to love who they are. And I don't mean this selfishly. I mean literally, I know who I am, so I can, as you said earlier, give myself away.
Yeah. And that's what love is. That's just that giving yourself
Simple.
away.
Right.
And it's
Sacrifice.
not love until it costs you something,
Yep.
I think.
Yep. I agree.
What about happiness? How does
Oh, wow.
how does happiness fit into this marriage
Yeah,
relationship?
yeah. Well, let's talk Bible and
As we
church.
throw
And
this
everything.
out.
What if Gary Thomas in Sacred Marriage? He also wrote a book called Sacred Sex, so that'll get the guys' attention that are watching.
I'm going to
right?
read it.
Yeah. But he wrote a book called Sacred Marriage, and he asked the question rhetorically: what if marriage, and to some degree every relationship, he doesn't ask it, I'm adding that, but what if marriage is about holiness rather than happiness? What if it's about making you who you really are rather than just making you happy? And so you asked the question, happiness is circumstantial. What if my definition of love is based on how you make me feel? Well, if you're buying me candy, if you're pumping me up, making me feel good, then, oh, we're good. I love you. But what happens when you don't do that, or I don't do that to you? Then the circumstances don't match up with happiness. Joy, on the other hand, is a fruit and a gift. And I can choose that every time, my response to you, even if you don't buy me the candy. I can still go, it's okay. I'm joyous about I choose to be joyous. I choose to bring that happiness, as we would understand it, into my life and go, I'm not going to hold that against you.
That's
Even
good,
if I brought you candy the last 6 days in a row. If you don't bring it to me, that's okay. If I begin to do that, then I say this often, I say love, a very simple definition of it for every relationship. Give 100%, expect 0. And everybody goes, you can't do that. I go, no, you can't. Because what you'll do is you're going to have the
You're right,
desire,
you cannot.
the attraction. You can't. But here's the difference. If I can go, I may have done this for you, and in my own self, my own selfish self, I go, man, I wonder what I'm going to get out of this. Okay, and if my wife or my kids don't follow through on that, I begin to go, wow, what kind of person are they? And, by the way, what are they saying about me?
Right.
And further, what are they saying about this? What are my wife saying about this marriage? She wasn't thinking that at all. I just had that expectation, and I went, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to help clean the house if you'll, have sex tonight. Can I say that on this show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
there's a
married.
lot
Okay,
there's a lot you can say.
Oh, good. You might edit it out though, right?
I have yet to edit anything out.
Good.
So.
Okay. But you see what I'm saying? If we have those expectations, and then it doesn't happen that way, now we're defining it based on the expectations. We're defining who that person is and how they responded. We're thinking of ourselves based on the way they responded, and we're thinking of the relationship in terms of that. And all I got to do is say, wait a minute, I'm committed to you. I love you. I'm going to do it. And if I don't get that, that's okay. I'm going to do it again the next day.
Right.
I'm going to help you and serve you and give myself away, as you said, again the next day. Happiness is the same way. It's not circumstantial. Joy is not. Happiness is.
I heard somebody define happiness as when your expectations meet your reality.
Yeah, and that's all. And that definition just takes that away.
And they seldom do, right? So
exactly.
So when they don't meet, you either change your expectations or you change your reality.
Or your definitions.
Or your right.
That person's not very nice because they didn't give me what I wanted out of this.
Right.
They just missed it. They weren't thinking the same thing I was, and that's okay. As Dr. Eggerichs in Love and Respect says, you're not right or wrong most of the time. You're just different. Right. But if you go in thinking, this is what I ought to get out of it, and they don't see eye to eye with me, and I don't get it, then I go, oh, they're bad. They're wrong. What's that say about me?
Right. It's two different ideas. And shoot, go ahead. You had another thought, I think.
Well, if we do this way, then we begin to go, wow, love really is about me simply committing. That's the word we used earlier, to this person, even on days when they don't give back and they don't make me feel good. Because there are certain days I'm going to be happier.
Right.
They are going to meet my expectations. But there's a lot of times they won't. They're imperfect. I'm imperfect. So I got to go, that's okay. What do I choose to do with it? I continue to give. Continue to serve.
Yeah, I remember when I wanted to interject into this. One of the books that I've read a couple times, and I absolutely love it, and I recommend it to people, like my kids. Read this book. This is good.
Yeah.
Is The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah, Dr. Chapman.
And so, fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about, giving and doing these things when you're in a relationship like that, and even in friendships and stuff, I think learn that person, know who they are, and because
right.
not
like, just that they turn you on.
Right. Yeah.
Not
exactly.
just that they no. Same thing with love and respect with the Eggerichs. Same thing with his needs, her needs with Dr. Harley. Sacred Marriage with Gary Thomas. All these have some great insights that will help you go, wait, how do I even begin this relationship?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Let me see these things and not just go, wow, she's cute. Or he's handsome. That's good enough for me, because that's going to come and go. Maybe later on in life it's going to go a lot more than it comes.
Right. That's true.
So
that's funny.
Hey,
that's so true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's but when we become students of each other,
right?
And then
and
especially in marriages, because that's I think the most important relationship in your life naturally.
Yeah.
Well, physically speaking, and then, but if I'm trying to tell somebody that I love them in my way of telling them, they might not get it, and they're like, "Geez, he doesn't ever communicate his love."
Exactly.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me?
Right.
I've mowed the lawn 10 times this week, and, or
that was
the
all
dishes.
for you." And they're going,
and they're just right
and,
over your
and
head.
you know what? We go back to these expectation things. When we begin to learn each other, we begin to let those go and go, "I'm going to do it anyway because of you," and they're going, "I'm going to do it anyway," and you begin to come together more.
Yeah.
If it's always expectations and the other person misses it because you're speaking in your love language and not theirs, then these expectations begin again to define you, them, and the relationship, and you're in trouble.
Well, and that's in that, yeah, exactly, in trouble, and then that's where everybody's like, "Well, wait a minute, this isn't working out so well."
There's no love here.
And we buy that it's your job as my spouse to make me happy.
Oh wow!
And if I'm not happy with who I am anyway,
that's great.
You're not going to make me happy, and that's and when I go into a relationship expecting that person that's their job,
you make it.
It's an unrealistic set of expectations.
You've set them up for failure.
Right.
Can they have a role in that?
Yeah,
absolutely, they should, and you should have in theirs, and you should be thinking that way. But it's never to complete or Jerry Maguire.
Right.
You complete me. all the women love that. And guys ought to understand why they love that. That's about relationship.
Write it down.
Yeah, write that one down. But it's not truth. It's only partial, because that other person can never do that completely for you. If you think they are, or you think they're going to make you happy, you set them up for failure. And the relationship follows shortly behind it oftentimes.
Right.
And we want to help them understand that better.
And I think that's a whole common misunderstanding that we go into in our society, that we enter into relationships, with that the feelings that our friend feelings play into it naturally.
Yeah, they're given to us, but they should not lead us.
Right, we can't build on that, because they'll change and they'll ebb and they'll flow with the day, or with the time of month,
the year,
or with the year.
Are you going to edit that out?
Probably not.
Okay.
But there's so many.
And you know what? Guys have cycles too. They're not as noticeable, but they've been researched to show that the same thing happens with us, ebbs and flows in our day-to-day and month-to-month life that can cause the same thing too. So you got to get beyond the desires and the hormones and the expectations.
Right, absolutely. I like the expectations. We have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah, and then don't even define them by it. Let them go. If they don't meet yours, let it go. Keep loving. Keep serving.
Yeah, I just told one of my kids the other day. We were talking about relationships, and I said, any real romance, real love, and longevity is going to come at a great personal sacrifice to you.
Absolutely.
And it takes work. Anything worth doing is going to take effort.
Right.
It doesn't just, certain things about a relationship may come naturally and come easily, but there's going to be a point where we do have to put forth an effort, and we need to expect that and know how best, what effort is going to serve you best.
I would take that a step further. I would say there are some things that will come naturally, because I think our Creator designed us to be able to do some of that. Okay. But I think in the fact that we are selfish by nature, there's more. Yeah, maybe not you, but I am.
Not at all.
No, but I think there's actually more that requires work than doesn't. And we've been sold a bill of goods in our culture, and even in many of our churches, that you're a Christian, you got married, it's going to be okay. And we don't worry about the work. It's all going to be natural for you because you're in the Lord. And I can't tell you the number of Christian couples I sit with and talk to and go, you fall for the lies that said you're a Christian, so everything's good, and you're married as a Christian, so everything works out okay. And it doesn't. You have to work on it.
Absolutely.
Most of the stuff we have to do in relationships and in marriage in particular, and even parenting, go against our own selfish nature.
Yeah. Oh
So
my
we have to
gosh.
die to that.
That's
we have
so
to get
true.
rid of that.
That's so
Yeah,
true. If I had a
yeah.
nickel for every time I walked around this house and was like, if I have to pick another thing up
Yeah,
that I didn't put out,
Yeah.
I'm going to be mad. And there's a little voice that will be like, yeah, but isn't it great that you have those kids?
Yeah, and how are you serving?
And you're like, yeah,
How
and
you
you're like,
love
oh,
them. Yeah.
that's-
Oh,
I know.
I didn't need that. yeah.
But it is. But it does. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take. I think it's going to take changing the way we think, like you were saying, about relationship and about expectations.
Yeah, and do you know that it's interesting because I know I grew up in churches where that the word repentance was a one-time thing. But the actual word metanoia, I know we're not getting it, but the actual word just speaks to what you just said. It means change your thinking. And it's an ongoing process. It's true in every part of our life. If I take a different job, I got to change the way I think about and do things.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a certain skill and I move into another one, I got to change the way I do that. My brain has gotten used to that. And what we do naturally, oftentimes we have to, go, we're not going to go there. I got to go in a different direction. I got to change that. And it's an ongoing thing.
It's a process.
It's a process.
It's
exactly
it's
right.
like life. It's
there you go.
It's a process. Yeah.
What's next, man? We've gone all over the
We have.
place here.
I think we've covered some really good stuff. Yeah. Okay, here's a question. We can just spend a little bit of time here. Broken families is a reality within and without of the church, inside and outside of the church. There's divorce and there's single parent families and what people that find themselves in that situation, what can they do to rise above it? For lack of a better
Let me
way to phrase it.
Say two things that lead up to that come to mind when you ask that question. First of all, I think one of our problems with this is that in the church, and I think we're seeing it now in the culture, because God's design was that the church would influence culture. Right. And we're not seeing that. We've lost that. We've lost our territory, so to speak. Yeah. And if we don't admit and agree with the fact that we've lost it and come back to them and say, I'm sorry, we conformed, we compromised in many ways, some subtle and some not so subtle, then we're not going to get that influence back, whether it's in the home and family or in the government, media, or education. And we see places where it's happening, but only when the body of Christ, the church, says that, will we get that back. Now, this is kind of in line with that, but I tweeted not too long ago this idea. What we do, even in many of our churches, we go, well, we got a lot of hurting people out there. So let's not talk about the truth about the real issue that's going on in their life or what they went through. And that's the very thing they need to hear. They need to hear what divorce really is so that they can understand what it is that may have led them there, the frustrations in both ways, and then they can understand they're forgiven for it. But if we compromise that and don't teach that whole truth, we've made God out to be a liar. And I tweeted this, I said, so often today, we compromise truth and call it grace. That means God's a liar. We shouldn't compromise. We should walk in that truth and know that there's grace there to cover us when we fall short. Right. But it doesn't mean we change that truth or we talk less about it. We talk about it clearly. And the other thing is this. We have to recognize, I think, three things. These attacks come and the brokenness comes from these attacks. Number one, we have a creator or an author who is the authority. If he's the author, he's the authority. And we need to understand who we're going to listen to, because it's going to make a difference in how we do relationships.
Absolutely.
Secondly, we are made in the image of the creator. So am I willing to listen to his authority to live that out? And we don't like authority.
No, by nature
we don't like it at all.
Like
Yeah, and so am I going to listen to him and follow that? And then the third thing is it's supposed to be lived out in relationship, where we show the kind of, if God is love and God is truth, then we live out the relationships, the truth in love. And you ask the brokenness. So if we go back and we begin to go, well, let's not say anything about divorce, or let's not say anything about promiscuity or cohabitation. All these things are apart from the authority. Let's speak about them so that people understand these are not okay, because they're going to end up a lot of times with brokenness. Right. And if you're broken, then you end up going, well, we'll try it anyway, and we didn't learn each other, we didn't follow that authority, and we end up in relationships that not only hurt you, they hurt the other person, and when you have children, that's difficult. But guess what's there in the midst of all that? Grace.
Yeah.
Grace is there. But if I compromise the truth because I don't think they want to hear it, they don't understand that and they don't get grace fully. And that's what happens, I think, in so many. So in the midst of all this brokenness, broken marriages, broken families, guess what still works? His truth, even if we mess it up.
Right.
But we
And we
understand
do. Right.
that.
And we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not
All
say when we mess it up. All the time. Right. But what we do is go, oh, but there's so many people that have messed that up, so let's not go there. And he's going, no, don't leave my truth out. That's the thing that sets them free. There's nowhere, we're talking a lot of scripture here.
Yeah.
So that's who I am, okay?
That's okay.
So,
man.
I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to force it. You don't have to believe this. You don't have to agree with this. And I'd still love to sit down with you.
Yeah.
And talk with you. But if it makes you think about something, we get to that point and we go, okay, I don't quite like that. And I know other people don't. So let's kind of leave that out. Let's not talk about that issue because there's people hurting about that. Right. If we bring it up, they'll hurt more. You know what? I found in my life that when I've made mistakes, when I've messed it up, I wasn't able to get past it until I really acknowledged and found out why I made the mistake and where I went there. And so if we can give that truth, nowhere in the Bible does it say love will set you free.
That's true.
It says truth will set you free. So truth is the foundation. Love is the virtue and the flow, so to speak, through which we can build these relationships. And you know what? If we mess them up, God's still there to help us out. But don't just go, well, just move on, it's done. Recognize what went on there. Recognize the brokenness and, as the Bible calls it, the sin in that, but recognize the forgiveness in it.
Yeah.
We want to just go, oh, you're forgiven, you're good. And people go, yeah, but I'm still troubled. There's something going on here.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. And so I hope that answered the thing about the divorce and the brokenness.
Well,
we leave out the truth and we're not set free.
Right.
We're still in bondage to all that. We go, well, we got out of it. Why am I still hurting? Why is the thing still going on? And over time, you'll eventually push that down. And we don't need that. We need to go, okay, here's what went on. Here's where my part was. And here's where God is on this issue. I want to line up with him and say, thank you. You forgave me anyway.
Right.
You forgave me anyway. Boy, do we all need that.
Oh, well, while we were, what is it? I can't remember where it is, but while we were yet sinners.
Yeah, Romans 5:8.
And that's, Christ still loved us and died for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the coolest thing about, this is actually a better wrapping up point, but whatever, I'll say it anyway.
Yeah. We'll come back to it.
We'll hit it again.
In a couple hours.
The thing that I've come to understand about God's love and what makes it so beautiful is that it doesn't expect change to be given to us. Change is not required of me to accept God's love.
He's already done that.
He's done it. And he loves me, or you, where we are at.
Yeah.
And it's not like we don't clean up and then go take a shower.
Yeah.
We get in the shower with all the dirt and the muck and everything on us.
You don't have to be clean to get into it.
Right.
You'd be in trouble.
But then the cool thing about God's love is he loves us too much to leave us where he found us. And if we'll let him, he'll start transforming us from the inside out.
You're right. And it's not only let him, we have to choose to.
Right.
Because he gives us that and he says, I've chosen you in my son. You have this gift and I love you that much and nothing can separate you from me from you. But my love is perfect, he's saying. Yours is not.
Right.
You got to grow in it. Now we're back to the first and second greatest commands. We don't, just because he saved us, comes back around. He doesn't say, oh, good, you're saved. Now you love me with all your heart. No, he says, now you have to learn to do that. And that's the point you're making. He doesn't leave us there. He gives us the tools, his word, his spirit to go, now, if you're willing to, you can grow in that kind of love. I'm already there, and I'm giving it to you. But you're not there.
Right.
You've got to grow in it.
You got to grow
in it. Exactly right. And what's true with him is then true with our neighbors. Yeah. And every one of our neighbors really falls in a priority. My wife is the most important neighbor in my life.
Right.
My children are next. Others in the family of God, yourself as a friend, or others. But the Bible all goes so far as to say, love your enemies. I don't feel good about my enemies, but I'm committed to that. Hopefully, when I run, and I have that, I've had a few I probably made a few, but that's not my intent. And if I did, I'm sorry, forgive me. But my intent is hopefully to help them see that truth that I've seen in my life. If they don't want it, that's okay. I can still love them. But when we start talking about this love and what God gives to us, we have to grow in it, and we grow in it by relationships.
Yeah.
If I'm willing to sacrifice my marriage and my wife, the love that I have for her, for other people, I'm not quite getting it.
The priorities.
That's the most important. There is a priority of relationships, and that's why when we say you're saved, go serve. We begin to mess that up because people need to learn how to love God, how to love who they are, and then if they're married, love their spouse, their marriage, their children, love those in the body that they grow. There's actually scientific research that's come out recently that says we can only love at any one point in time at a great depth 3 people.
Oh, wow.
Isn't it interesting that Christ, when he was here, he had 12 around him, but he had 3 really close. And when he separated and spent time with 12, he did that for a while, but then he took the 3 even deeper. Yeah. Now, that can be seasonal and we can go, but we really only can invest in and carry the burdens of 3 people. But we try and build institutions and organizations that can carry, if we're not doing it together in my family, in my marriage, in the body of Christ and in the world, it's not going to work. We can't solve it by 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2 big organizations, no matter who they are. It wasn't his design.
Well, it starts. All those changes start here first one. And here, and then it grows.
Yeah, and which is what you said. He loves you completely, but when you're saving, you get that. You don't love him that way. You got to learn. You got to grow in it, and then you can do it with others.
Right. And that's why I said if we'll let his love change us, it will. Right. But we have to make that choice.
Choose to join him in that.
Right. Yep. And what I tell my kids, I was like, there's been boyfriends that have come in and come out of the picture, and be like, I don't like that person because I know A, B, C, and maybe that's me being a little judgmental, but as a parent, you're super protective of your kids.
Yes. Yeah.
And they'll be like, Dad, don't you believe that people can change? And my answer is, oh, absolutely. They just don't.
Yeah. Missionary dating hardly ever works, though.
Right.
Based on a lot of these other things we've said, it hardly ever works. It's like a 1% success rate.
Yeah, and even on a non-religious side of that, or not religious, but you know what I mean. I think the reason that we do, people can change but don't, it's the same reason as when we receive God's love, if we'll let it change us. Well, but when we to let change happen in us on any level, we have to do the painful thing of turning our gaze inward and going, what is bad about
I need to change?
What is
Michael Jackson I love his voice in songs, but he really got one thing right. The man in the mirror. Everybody wants to change the world and the other person, but like you said, we got to put the mirror up and go, okay, let's start with me.
Right.
Let me see first where I am. And if we're not seeing that, and especially when you're watching your kids and you see someone that's never gotten that, then you know where that often is leading.
Yeah.
And you want to tell your kids, okay, I can't tell you make you because you're going to go out and do this, but I want to teach you the things that can help you see those kind of things. You can still like that person, but to get more close, in a closer relationship with them, you're risking a lot of things yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about you risk giving love to them. You risk them tearing you down because they don't get it. They've never put that mirror up.
Right.
And we all have to learn that.
Yeah, it's so important. And I don't know what your experience has been. Mine has been, it's the most painful thing in the world to do. When I went through my divorce, the easy thing to do would be to blame everybody else.
Toss the mirror out.
Except I don't need that mirror. I can see everything.
Yeah.
And but in my time with God, it was a focusing on me. And what can we fix in you? Because it was clear that regardless of what the outcome was going to be in my marriage, that God was telling me, this isn't just for your marriage. You need this for you.
Which is what we ought to learn before marriage.
Right.
See, that's part of what we're talking about. You said how in relationships, if we don't understand what true love in truth, foundation really is, we're going to have a difficulty with this. We're back to the cookie jar again. Oh yeah, I'll share one with you if you'll give me 2 of yours.
Right.
That's not a great relationship. A loving relationship says, here, now, if you eat all of them, you're going to get sick. I want you to know that, but you can have them all. And whether now, if you're going into marriage and it's going to be a lifetime commitment, it's supposed to be with one person, then what you got to do is you got to say, okay, I've got to test this and go, here, are we understanding that we both are on that same path to go, I understand what that kind of love is.
Right.
And I'm willing to. And on that day when we've learned, as you were saying to your kids, when we've learned what that kind of love is, then we end up going, on that day when we say I do, we're going, here, you can have my whole cookie jar, all of it.
Right. Because we've been learning it as we go.
Right, and learning them, and hopefully they're saying, I'm doing the same thing. And I don't ever want it back. Whatever you do with it, we mess it up, you'll take more of mine, they'll run out. I told my wife on early in our relationship, before we were engaged even, I said, here's something that I've learned. You will never be first in my life. And she said, about 3 months later, she comes back to me and goes, that rocked my world. Nobody's ever treated me that way. I said, here's the reason. If I think I have enough that I can put you first and I'll always be able to provide and everything you need and love for you and I'll never run out, it's going to run out. But if Christ is first in my life, it'll never run out. And she said, I began to see that and I began to get it. And it helped me to understand it. It helped her to understand it. And we've been blessed in that. But it's not easy. I had to say no. I had to die to a lot of things, as you said.
Well, and like you said earlier, naturally we tend to be selfish and looking out for number one.
Yeah.
And what am I going to get out of it?
Protect ourselves, and what do we get? Yeah.
Yeah. Or well, maybe I was, rude, but you were.
Yeah. What did you do?
And it's instead of I was A, B, or C, and there's regardless of what I was reacting to. Mm-hmm. In one of your conferences that I sat in, there was a cycle thing talked about. Of love and
cycle.
Love and respect, and then and there's also the no love, no respect cycle,
right.
and until
energizing cycle was the good one,
right? That's what it was, yeah.
Yes.
And when hopefully, like you said, we give without expecting anything in return in a relationship, especially in a marriage.
Right.
But hopefully, ideally, both people are on the same page, so.
Yes.
We're
working toward that same page.
Right.
Part of the process, but we understand these foundational things, and we not only are working on it ourselves with the mirror up, we're seeing the other person work in that direction. And we can tell our kids, if you will see those things in the other person, you got a lot of better chance at this.
Right.
If you're looking past it because they turn you on and make you hot or whatever else, then you're going to miss a lot of things. Yeah.
I got to cut that out.
Turn the AC back on, man. But we're going to miss a lot of the things that are going to last for the things that are just temporary and immediate gratification, instant gratification. And we need the long term, and that takes learning, growing, sacrificing.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, listen. I want to respect your time because I know you've got somewhere you need to be.
We can go on all day.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes down to it. Is there anything else you want to share before we?
Yeah. Let me close. You said something. You repeated something I said. I want to hit that, and then I'll close with something. You said give 100%, expect zero, no expectations. And again, when we're talking about that, what we're saying is it's not that you don't have them. It's that you learn to let go of them and say, yeah, that's there. But if you don't respond that way, I'm still going to love you. And I'm going to still know who I am. And I'm still going to continue to give to you and share with you and serve you. And that means our relationship can still grow. But if you didn't give it to me and I go, oh, who are you? Then it starts to wilt and it starts to falter. So we've really got to keep that. We learn that. The last thing I'd say is this. You asked a question, right? We didn't get to it, but I think it's a great closing. What do I think is the biggest misconception about marriage? I think we could tie all this up. We've said, and it really is a good close. I think the biggest thing is that we've said it's totally about the individual, which is ridiculous to start with. Because if you got two people that are coming together, it can't just be about one.
Right.
Because no matter how good and loving you are, you're going to have disagreements, you're going to have frustrations. So if it's all about me, when you disagree with me, it's over. So the biggest misconception is it can't be just about the individual, and it can't be just about our feelings and our emotions and the romantic side. Those are all part of it.
Right.
But it cannot just be that. It has to be this understanding that love and a loving relationship is truly a commitment. I use these words. It's an intentional investment. It's a choice. It's an act of the will.
Yeah.
And there's going to be times when that love and that truth means I need to share something with you that may not feel very good. And you need to do that with me. And if we can do that, then we understand that love is not just the feeling or the individuals. It's the commitment to the relationship, to the other person and to the relationship. And that requires, as you've said several times, it requires cost and sacrifice. Right. And if we would look at it as that, it would totally change not just the gay marriage situation that we're talking, it would change marriage for what God designed it to be. And we would have a model of integrity, not perfection, but integrity in which we could shine that light. And that's what my prayer and our hope is. That's what we do in Marriage Movement. I would like to say, do you mind if I tell them KentuckyMarriageMovement.org?
Please do. And We'll put a link in the description and I'll throw it up on the screen.
We're at KentuckyMarriage.org. That's our website. And on Facebook, we're at Kentucky Marriage Movement. It's a group. If you like the articles or click on the events and see what's going on and come out and join us, we'd love to meet you and talk with you. Or give me a call. The number will be on there, or my email one. I think it's Greg at KentuckyFamily.org.
I'll throw it all up.
But you can throw it on there.
I'll throw it all up.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the description. And a little reminder on the screen and stuff.
Thank you for having me.
Greg, thanks for joining me.
Doing.
Good conversation. And I love that we can talk about so many different topics. And that was my whole idea with this thing, was talking about a lot of different things.
Yeah,
some heavy, some light, some,
Ours was really light.
It was all the way through, even. And we talked about sex briefly. And that's not happened in a podcast before. Anyways. All right. Well,
got to keep the guys involved.
That's right. More men to watch our show. So many jokes that I want to make right now that I just don't think I'll...
Just close this out.
I'll have to edit it out. Yeah, let's pray. Guys, tune in next week. We'll be having another Artist Spotlight with Katie Stewart-Saunders, a friend of mine, actress out of Louisville. You won't want to miss that. It's going to be great. So lots of good things coming up. Until then, I'm Eric, reminding you that life is too short to not pursue the things that you're passionate about. And let me just add to it that relationships are worth the time and are worth the effort. Thanks so much.